noisy. I said, you don't have to be around me.
Friendship may actually go beyond just relating on a superficial basis.
There's the adage that says, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are.
There are some of us who are not very good at regular visit, but because they are friends,
you have to.
In order to maintain that friendship.
The emotional state of the parents is usually directly proportional to the emotional state of the children.
Hello viewers, welcome again to our favorite family show right here on Equa Television International, The Living Room. My name is Amaka Ocheke, and for all of us who are Christians, or those of us who are Christians, we all have pastors. We attend churches and we have pastors, and our pastors usually are all-purpose people. They do a lot of things, for praying for us, encouraging us, visiting us, sometimes even giving us money, clothes, and giving us advice. And sometimes we forget that these pastors are also human. So today we are here to talk about the well-being of pastors. And in the studio with me to discuss this very important issue is Reverend Jerry Farouk. I call him Uncle Farouk, but he's a Reverend Jerry Farouk. Mrs. Ibi Namo and Pastor Obioma. He says I shouldn't call him Obioma. Pastor Obioma. So from what you have heard, you already know who is a floor member and who is a pastor or pastor related. So let's start. I'll start with you, Mrs. Namo, as a fellow floor member. Pastors, they're all supposed to be very spiritual. So from your experience, do you think pastors have any challenge at all?
I think we overrate pastors. We think they are superhumans. But for me, I think pastors are first of all humans, first of all husbands, and, first of all who they are before they became pastors. So if we understand that pastors are human beings, we will treat them like human beings. And we will make them feel like superhumans, where we expect them to do superhero things, they are more spiritual. If a pastor makes a mistake, we shout, "Hey, pastor, he made a mistake." But if another human being, another church member makes a mistake, it must be more like, okay. But if the other person can make a mistake, the pastor too can make a mistake. So because pastors are also human beings. So let's not make superhumans out of pastors. Let's see them as human beings, and let's see them as husbands, wives, children. If a pastor lost his wife, we think that he should not cry because he's a pastor. No, he's a human being. He has feelings, and if he has feelings, we should let him express his feelings.
Pastor is a man of God. Uncle Jerry.
Every human being is a man of God.
So, Uncle Jerry, should men
Every
of God have
God.
feelings, or do they experience the kind of feelings? Because I don't know what Mrs. Namo is talking about. Our pastors are supposed to be there, always cool, calm, collected. They shouldn't have problems. So you've worked as a pastor, you've worked as pastor support system, mission support system for missionaries. So do they really have problems, and should they have problems being the spiritual people that they should be, not minding what Mrs. Namo is saying?
Incidentally, I agree 100% with Mrs. Namo.
Wow, okay.
That this concept that pastors are nearer God than other people is a wrong concept. We are all children of God. We have equal access to God. He has the Spirit. He has given us His Spirit in us. And the only difference between any child of God and the other is how much we yield to the Holy Spirit in our lives, so that he can lead us and guide us into all truth. And that's what Jesus Christ said the Holy Spirit was coming to do. So the pastors are being overrated and judged to be superhuman beings. We all, as children of God, yes, are superhuman beings in the sense that we have the Spirit of God, who is over human, but he is also available to everyone. And because we are still in the flesh, we have similar challenges like everyone else. There are issues in the family, there are needs in the family, there are emotional needs for the person as a human being. So they don't change, they don't differ. It's just because of that position that we have placed the pastor as the shepherd of the flock. Much more is expected of the pastor, but it isn't that the pastor is over and above every other person in terms of relationship with God or fellowship with God.
Okay. Pastor Biama, I see you nodding, so you seem to agree with them. Okay. What kind of expectations, wrong expectations, do we as congregation members have of you pastors?
Well, I think they have very clearly enumerated some of them. But let me just add an angle that I think is very necessary or critical here. Paul wrote and said that God chooses the weak things of the world
Confound the wise.
To exactly, the strong and the foolish things to confound the wise. Yeah. It's my considered opinion that pastors are not the strongest. They are the weakest. The same principle applies even in the discharge of this spiritual gift. The pastor is not the strongest per se. His role and function is an act of grace and mercy.
Wow.
So we shouldn't translate that to mean that he in and of himself is a repository of spiritual power. Like there's something in him, okay, that just makes him okay 100% all the time. No. He's a human being. When the pastor is sick, he too should experience the prayer that should come from the saints, from members.
Do pastors fall sick?
Yeah.
Yes, I felt sick recently. And I'm speaking from experience.
We don't expect pastors to fall sick.
That's the truth, but they should. They are, or they do.
Fall ill.
They do fall ill. Okay, so I think one of the great harms that has come the way of pastors, and unwittingly from pastors and members, is the setting up of pastors onto a pedestal that God has not created for us. If Elijah, who called down fire from heaven, will tell God and say, it is enough, I'm not better than my fathers, take me out of the sin. I don't know why today we think that pastors should not fall into such rot. The same thing with John the Baptist. He asked Jesus, this is the one who saw the Holy Ghost come like a dove upon the Lord. He testified. And later on, when he was in the throes of trouble and problems, he sent word to Jesus and said, are you the one? And I studied that passage this year, and I realized that Jesus did not shut down John. No. He didn't shut him down. He didn't talk up spiritual talk and tell him, are you not a prophet? He simply reminded him that indeed he was Christ, and it was enough for John. So I think we should be very careful. I agree wholeheartedly with my co-discussants that we shouldn't set up pastors to occupy a position that God has not given us. We remain humans. We remain fallible. We remain prone to temptation and even to the vagaries of this life, like lack, like sickness. We are just like every other member. The difference is that God has just given us the privilege out of mercy to shepherd the flock. Members shouldn't forget that.
Wow, this is very serious. Because I realize many times when pastors do something or something happens, people go, and he's even a pastor.
Yes.
So in other words,
Yeah.
we expect pastors to be perfect.
Infallible.
To be perfect, infallible. So Mrs. Namo, as a fellow floor member again, let's go back. What are some of our unrealistic expectations of pastors?
You know, sometimes we expect the pastor to visit every member of the church.
Yeah?
And sometimes nobody visits the pastor. And
Okay,
I'm wondering,
just pause there. Why would we expect that the pastor will visit all of us?
because we think he is our pastor.
Okay, and why can't he visit all of us?
How will a human being? It depends on the congregation, the numbers in the congregation. Even if the number is not that large, he has other responsibilities.
What other responsibility apart from us, the members?
He has his own immediate family. And you know, sometimes we push the pastor to the point that they neglect their family. There are some pastors who, for the sake of church, have forgotten they have family, forgotten they have children. And we push them. And yet, this same pastor, when his child misbehaves or his wife misbehaves, we still curse them. Hey, pastor's children. Hey, pastor's wife. Can you imagine? But yet, we're the one who took them away from their family. And I think that we expect too much. We expect the pastor to always pray for everybody. We expect the pastor to always have food in his house. So that every time I enter, how can I go and visit a pastor and we say there's nothing to give me to eat? Pastor, he should always be having food. He should always be praying for us. In fact, he should shoulder all the problems that we have in church. That's very unrealistic.
Including getting us jobs when we don't have jobs.
Yeah, that's very unrealistic. You don't think that the pastor is struggling with his wife, he's struggling with his children. You don't think that the pastor sometimes cannot sleep at night because he has family, he has relations. Maybe he has a sick mother. Maybe he has a sick brother. Maybe his wife is even sick. Maybe one of his children is giving him challenges that he is struggling with and praying with. And sometimes we have put them in a position that they find it difficult to even talk to us. Because they feel like if they talk to us, we are going to, if a pastor comes and says, please pray for my son. I don't understand. You say, pastor, me, pray for your son. Why? You know, because we expect too much from them. So some of these things are very unrealistic. A pastor is supposed to pray. Yeah, pray generally for the church. But we don't think that a pastor should know every member of the church, should visit every member of the church, should pray for every member. He can pray generally. But some of these needs, I think that's why churches are beginning to have different units. So that you can, like the time of Moses. Moses' father-in-law told him that you are going to die. If you are going to do this with this congregation, you will kill yourself. Is he not doing the work of God? Moses will sit down and be attending to church matters from morning till evening. He will go back and wake up the next morning. The father-in-law say, Oga, you will kill yourself. Can you begin to assign delegate this thing to other people? So if another person has attended to your need, don't insist that it must be the pastor. Don't insist.
Yeah, I think sometimes, no matter some people, if pastor
If it's
does
not
not
the
pray,
pastor,
that
the prayer
God
is
will
not
not
going.
hear. But Pastor Bioma, sometimes, don't you think that sometimes it's the pastors who set themselves up
Yeah.
That's true.
to give the impression that
They can handle
they
it.
are superhumans, they can handle it all.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody preach on the internet recently, a preacher saying that pastors need to, that when a pastor is getting married, wants to marry, he has to marry a very godly woman, because pastors sow themselves into the life of congregation, that they need a good woman at home to take care of the home front. And I felt that didn't sound right.
Mm-hmm.
So why are pastors setting themselves up?
This problem comes from 2 points, from pastor and the congregation. When the congregation sets up the pastor that way, he will be like that. when the pastor teaches them to think that way, they will be like that. Most times it's a collaboration. I call it a dependency addiction. Okay? Instead of, you see, Martin Luther's, one of the great things that Martin Luther gave the church as a heritage is this idea of the priesthood of all believers. The pastor is just a senior among equals. He's not Alpha and Omega. But somehow, most times in the minds of pastors, we begin to think that we are Alpha and Omega. And it's dangerous for the people. It's dangerous for the ministry. We cannot solve all things. We cannot handle all cases. We cannot. And one of the marks of good pastoral ministry is being able to train the people for the work of the ministry. Ephesians 4:13. That's the aim. And that's why for me, discipleship is a cardinal value that should be upheld in church. Where you are having this dependency addiction, it is because the pastor is not training, is not discipling the church. If that was taking place, the pastor would be divested of more of these lesser responsibilities, and he will give himself. He shouldn't forget that in Acts 6, the apostles said, we must give ourselves to the ministry of the word and to prayer. It's very clear in scripture. So they had to set up people who will do this other thing about sharing. But the pastor today wants to be in that one. He wants to do visitation. As much as he must do those things, it's not his primary calling. I know of pastors who give themselves. There's a church, I won't call the church on the air because for some reasons, but they gave their pastor 3 days off simply for the pulpit. 3 days. And that pastor has been, he's been pastoring since 1969, has been able to train over hundreds of elders, very competent in their own right. Okay, so this problem of dependency syndrome is a very big problem in most churches, for most pastors, okay, affecting most churches. It shows a very it shows that there's a problem, okay, with the pastor, a problem of a lack of he's not secure in himself, he's not secure in his calling and in his place. When the pastor is secure in his place, he will train the people and the coach goes back. You let the football players, you let them play the game. Your job is to coach them, to train them, and to take the back seat.
Uncle Jerry, can you add more to this dependency thing? Because it's so bad, because I know now it's so serious that there are some people who won't travel without a go-ahead from the pastor. Some people will not take on a job. Pastor must okay everything. Okay everything. Then some, even the person they marry is the pastor who will choose and say, marry this person. As if the pastor will be in the house when problems start. So why? What is fueling this?
Well, like my colleague said, it comes from both ends. And if the pastor knows that his primary responsibility and his job description is actually that Ephesians 4:11-13, that you are called to prepare the saints for the work of service. And preparation of the saints mean training, mean teaching, mean discipling, means shepherding. So Psalm 23 is also part of. So when you put Ephesians 4 and put Psalms 23, you will see the work of the pastor there. And it does not include, doing everything. If you are to prepare the saints for the work of service, it means it is the saints that do the work. It's the saints that are to do the work. You are to prepare them for the work of service. But many pastors take it upon themselves that I am the Alpha and the Omega. I have to do all of these things. He leads the prayer meeting. He speaks on Sunday. He does the Bible study. He does the counseling. You will fall down and die. But if you are able to train elders and members of the church so that there is a family life committee, for example, who is taking care of counseling and preparing members for marriage, then the pastor doesn't have to do it. if you have capable people who are able to train others, to guide them on how to lead Bible study, so you will have Bible study leaders who are leading Bible study, and the pastor can sit in that group and learn without him having, as soon as the pastor comes, they say, oh, pastor is here now. So let us hear what the pastor has to say. If that is happening, then something is wrong with you as the pastor, and something is wrong with you as members. The pastor is the shepherd of the sheep, but he is not the all in all. You know, when it comes to when he will comfort them, he will do that. When it comes to when he will use the rod, you know, to put them right, he will do that. But it is not that everything in the church has to be done by the pastor. I'm coming to particularly about prayer. Like I said in the beginning, we all, as children of God, have access to God. We have access to God in prayer. And God does not necessarily hear the prayer of a pastor over and above that of the members. No. You know, there are people who are gifted in praying, who are they are gift and they are calling to uphold others in prayer. But even them, if you push it to an extreme, they now become like prayer vendors, you know, and it is not right either. So if you have anything, go to this prayer team. No, if they have a burden to pray, and they are praying irrespective of what, fine and good. But let us not make pastors or any group of people as those who we have to consult before we do anything, or unless they are in it, it will not happen in the church.
So pastors are human. They also need support.
They need rest.
Yeah. And they should also be willing to listen to other people, because I know sometimes there are pastors who
Surely.
I don't know, as he says, it's an interdependent thing.
Yes.
The congregation will not allow him, and he too sometimes wants it, seems to want it that way.
Yeah.
Bible study, you are the one leading. Preaching every Sunday, you are the one preaching. You don't want anybody. Some people feel threatened too by anybody on their pulpit. They don't want anybody, you know, on their pulpit. But I think, as you are saying, what we've raised is the pastor should be willing to also be fed, not only feeding
You
others.
know, the wrong notion is that the sheep belongs to you. The sheep are not yours. They are God's sheep. You are just there to help, and he expects you to train them to be able to help. It's a chain. It's not one
Doesn't end with
you. So if God has called you, he's called you to walk, to train others, like the apostles did in Acts. They trained 7 people to take over the table. And at the end of the day, you see that people like Stephen and Philip did not end up in the table. They went further to do. Philip went to do evangelism with the Ethiopian Union, went to so many other places. You know, Stephen was preaching to a crowd. It even led to his death. You know, so if you train people, you have peace. You can take the back seat as a pastor, and then you even have time to pray more for the congregation. You know, so but if you are the one who preaches, you have 3 services in your church. You are the one who preaches in all the 3 services. You have Wednesday fellowship. You are the one who is preaching and leading the prayer meeting. Youth are having conference. You are the one who is leading the youth conference. What
Even
is
the
it
women
now?
meeting.
Women meeting. You are the one who is leading. What now?
Okay. So pastors need to also make time for
You
personal
need-
development.
yeah.
Your relationship with God is primary.
and your family.
That's
family.
okay, and family, yes,
Yeah.
as you said. So now, knowing all these things, that pastors are human, they also face challenges like the rest of us. Pastor Biama said pastors fall sick. And I'm like, okay. Pastors fall
Haven't
sick.
you seen pastors in your hospital?
I've seen pastors. But, you know, the general mentality is that they cannot fall. Prayer warriors, how can they fall sick? They should be able to lay hands on others and lay hands on themselves. Sure, sickness should see them and be afraid, and should not come near them. So knowing that they have all these problems, frailties, problems around. We as the congregation now, Pastor Bioma, will start with you. How can we support our pastors so that they can do well in the ministry that God has called them to?
The first need of a pastor, it's a pair, love and respect. You must love your pastor without any hypocrisy. Genuinely love him. You don't have to be a huggy person. You don't have to be flippant. Just sincere love. If you are saying good morning to your pastor, just mean it. Then you must respect him, because we said he's human. The pastor will err. I have erred. Go ask my congregation. I have erred. But you have to respect him. There's a way you would speak to your pastor that will damage him for years. Honestly speaking. So when the pastor errs, there's a way the congregation we shouldn't spare him.
We should correct,
but we should correct him in a way that does not disrespect him, especially when it's not a moral issue. The things we're talking about now are not sinful issues. We're talking about weakness, human weakness, not sin. The pastor should not spare himself when it comes to anything that is sinful, and the church should not. But when it comes to issues of weakness, human weakness, human frailty, we should respect him, we should love him. The next thing I think is that is a great need for the pastor is honest feedback. Let him get honest feedback. Pastor, the last time you were preaching, you made this citation, but it's not very correct. This is the actual fact checking, but you are doing it with grace. You are helping the pastor. I know of an elder in one of our Equa churches, a very respected lawyer, who would call the pastor at the end of the service and says, Pastor, this is grammatically not correct. He helped him. When this pastor gave the testimony years later, you could see the improvement in him. Okay, so he needs honest feedback. There's also concern. You need to be concerned about your pastor, and it must show. I'll just say this on a general note. Okay, it's specific to specific issues or problems that will have to do with the pastor, but you need to be concerned about him and let it be genuine.
Pastor Bioma, I will pause you here because it's time to go on break.
All right.
So we'll go on
Thank
break,
you.
and when we come back, I will pause you. Continue. You continue telling us how we can support our pastors. So viewers, we're going on break. When we come back, our phone lines will be up. You can call in to contribute to this interesting conversation about pastors' well-being.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
From our break, we've been here at the living room of Equa TV International talking about pastors' well-being. We've raised the issue that pastors are not superhuman. They are humans who God has graced and given responsibilities to take care of his flock. They are still human. They have challenges, they have needs, and we should understand that. And we've delved into how we can support our pastors to be all that God wants them to be. We've been here with Pastor Bioma, Mrs. Namo, and Reverend Farouk, talking about how we can support our pastors. And our phone lines are up, so that if you want to contribute to this conversation, please phone in and make your comments or ask your questions to enrich the conversation that we're having. So back to you, Pastor Bioma. On pause. Continue from where you stopped.
Thank you very much, Prof. So I was speaking about honest care and concern. It's very good that we show our pastors that we honestly care about them. I have discovered that appreciating pastors is not so much about money. It's more about honesty. As pastors, many times when we are appreciated in church, an offering is taken for you, but you hardly get up to 3 members who would walk up to you and say, Pastor, that day, I appreciate you for your ministry. Honestly, that's what gets to me the most. Your pastor preaches a message, call him. The last time I preached in church, a member called me and said, thank you so much for this message. It spoke to me. That meant more to me than millions. So give him honest concern. Then there's also physical and emotional rest. This is very important. One of the ways to kill this dependency syndrome is to deliberately plan rest for the pastor. Let him be out of the system. That's one way to show all of us that he's nothing. He's not alpha and omega. Sorry, he's like we said, he's senior among equals, but he's not alpha and omega. So he should go for rest.
So pastor should go on leave.
They should go on leave deliberately, and even more. I think the annual leave, this current arrangement is not even very adequate.
How long?
It should be structured to work within his schedule and in the way his programs and itinerary flows during the year. He knows when he should go out and rest. It could be 2 weeks. You may break it. It's very important. Then lastly is friendship. This is one of the most difficult needs of the pastor, one which is hardly met. The pastor needs friends. And this is one of the first responsibilities of elders. They must be the pastor's friend. You see, Jesus had 12 of them. And then he chose 3. They were his friends. Jesus would share with them his personal problems, his challenges. Right in Gethsemane, he chose those 3. Say, could you, when you see him asking them, could you not even pray with me? You see that need. So the pastor needs friends. Not everyone will be his friend. If the pastor visits you, everybody is already uptight. The pastor has come to check us. Even when they come to your house, there's that tension. So the pastor finds it very difficult to have friends, very honest friends. So it's one need the church must try to meet, especially through the leadership structure from the elders to the first layer of sub-organ leaders.
Uncle Jerry, how else can we support?
Pastor has stolen my notes. So I will expand. I will expand on what he has said. Appreciation of the pastor goes beyond the money. I have here that you should give him positive feedback, on sermons and on other things that he does that you appreciate. That does much more to help him know that he is meeting needs than giving him money. And money once a month, once a year. Once a year is not it. There can be other ways of appreciating them. Occasionally, acknowledge their birthdays, the birthdays of their family, and give small gifts at those times. And just say, well, we know that this is your birthday, and this is a small gift. And occasionally, when you visit, drop something. It doesn't have to be money. You have read a good book, and you say, my pastor should be able to read this book. Even if you are lending it to him, Pastor, I think you need this book, and you give it to him. He will appreciate that. He knows that you care about his well-being and about his growth, that you are able to, support him in this way. I also have top on the list, pastors are lonely, and so they need friendship. I know how pastors come to our house, and they will feel relaxed, and because
No
there is
pressure.
that friendship. We don't say, okay, yeah, pastor, so everybody would I know. But if the pastor can come to your house and drop his guards and be himself, and you will talk and laugh, and you know that you are giving him a shoulder to cry on, friendship to appreciate, and that you acknowledge that he is a human being. He has the emotional needs of somebody around them. That will be
But
very helpful.
still on that, I've heard a pastor preach saying that pastors should not make friends with, floor members like
Forget
us.
about that.
If pastors need friends, you go and make friends with fellow pastors. That you cannot open yourself up like
No,
that.
no,
When
it's
you
not
do
true.
that, you set yourself up.
I don't
It's
You
know.
will
not true.
never learn to be a human. You will learn to be a superhuman.
Yeah.
Because
It's
it
not
means
true.
that it's only pastors that are befriending pastors. No. Pastors, you can't be a friend to every church member. But there are
But
some
yeah.
persons that will be
Yeah.
People
attracted.
agree.
Yes, that can be your friend. Yes,
Yes.
I think that, people should visit the pastor. They need visit. We always cry, pastor doesn't visit me. When did you visit the pastor last? When did you go to his house? Not to go and see whether his children are misbehaving or to go and eat. You just, is it possible for you to even make your Sunday rice after church, put it in the car after church and go to move to the pastor's house and say, today our Sunday rice, we want to eat it with you. And sit down there, the children, your children, the pastor's children, everybody's laughing and eating and just relax. Just create an atmosphere for the pastor to relax, not to always feel they have to be on a spiritual mood. Can you just release the button, allow them to breathe? It's true. Now let the pastors breathe. They are human beings, for God's sake. We should pray for them.
Yes.
If you
for
hear
them
of
regularly.
anything about a pastor, can you commit it to prayer? Instead of it to be a topic of discussion, can you begin to pray for them? Can you? I was opportune to work with pastors for a very long time, and I see some of the struggles of these pastors. Some of them are even struggling with their wives, and until you get inside, you will not know what they're going through. Some of them feel like quitting the ministry because they are going through some turbulence. But they need somebody who will come and tell them it's okay. Okay, I think there was a story my husband told me about a children worker. Okay, this is a children worker who felt that he's not impacting anything, he's not doing anything. What is this children ministry about? And he left. He left where he was working and wanted to move to another state, pick up. He was working with children ministry. So in the bus, while going, they got to where they would eat, and a young man walked up to him and greeted him. And after discussion, he now said, "Sir, you don't remember me. You are the one who led me to Christ in my Sunday school when I was a child." The man looked at him and said, "How many years ago?" He said, "About 15 years ago. You have become a grown-up man like this." So it's like the thing gave hope, made the man to feel that he was working. So that's why I feel like they need acknowledgement. If you don't acknowledge them, they won't. Some of them don't even think they are making any impact. They preach on Sunday after Sunday, and nobody is telling them, this thing you said, touched me. This thing you said, made sense. So they go, they check the note again, say, did I really make any impact? But when just one person will call and say, Pastor, thank you. I needed that message. Say, my sermon is affecting somebody's life. It gives them, morale to prepare for next Sunday. I think we should learn to acknowledge them. We should, when they dress well, acknowledge a pastor. "Oh, pastor, you look nice." It's not a big deal. Maybe the men, because if a woman acknowledge now, they can read meaning to it. So maybe the men can begin to acknowledge their pastors. and
Men
say,
don't
Pastor,
acknowledge dressing.
you look nice.
Men don't acknowledge even the
Their
wives.
wives. So
But they should learn, sha.
yes, let's
Yeah,
learn.
they
Let's
should
learn
learn.
to
It's a good
acknowledge
thing
the
to do.
pastor.
It's a good thing to
And
do.
if you notice that the pastor has a need, don't wait for it to be preached in church.
Yeah.
Don't wait until
help meet that
yes,
need. Yeah.
until they mention it in church. Just go and meet the need silently. You don't need announcement, and let it be. And you think he will not appreciate it? He will. Maybe he has been praying. You might be the person God wants to use. So let's interact with them. In the interaction, we even know what needs they have. You know, you may never know that the pastor's tap has spoiled until you visit the pastor. And he has been managing it. Sometimes you see a pastor wrapping his phone with this sellotape, you know, because he doesn't have money to buy another one. And we are seeing it, and everybody is just passing. If you, like they said, if you acknowledge their birthdays, on birthday, can you change pastor's phone? Can you change pastor's suit? Can you change pastor's shoe? Just to make him feel like these people that he's working with, they see him.
Uncle Jerry, you were still on some things.
Yeah,
some issues we were trying to raise.
Well, she has also raised the issue of prayer. I said, while members think pastors' prayers are the ones that God hears, the pastor also needs prayer support regularly. You may not be able to pray for him every day, but I have used a prayer guide where I have gone through, Stephen Alford shared that with us. There's the day you pray for family, there's the day you pray for missionaries, the day you pray for your pastor, the day you pray for other things. So
pastor should be on your prayer list.
So the pastor should be on your prayer list. Even if it is once a week that you are specifically praying for your pastor, that will go a long way. And it is this time. It is not the left hand should not see what the right hand is doing. It's not in this case. You can tell him. We let him know that you are praying for him.
And if he has prayer needs,
if he has prayer needs, let him know, because you are praying for him. He will be glad to know that you are praying for him.
Yeah.
And that will help him. He knows that he is not alone in this thing. There are Aaron's and hers that are lifting his hands. So that is something that you cannot fail to do, in order to help the pastor in his work. And this acknowledgement of things in his life are great. Just like the example she gave. Interestingly, I got that yesterday. Just after I finished preaching in the church that I was invited to preach, and I was going back home, usually when the pastor preaches, there is some energy that goes out of you.
Virtue has gone
out. You kind of feel drained. And so I dropped my son and I was going home. And as soon as I got into the car, this woman just flagged me and said, hey. I looked at her, I couldn't recognize her, but she said, I saw you and I just want to greet you. I said, okay. He said, you wouldn't know me. I have known you. You've ministered to us since when I was a little girl like this. But now, and I said, when I looked at her, she was really big. I said, oh, and now you have become bigger than me. And she said, no, but truly I just want to thank you because when we were growing up, we were looking up to you. I'm glad to see that you are still looking good and you are keeping your face, but I want to acknowledge you. So she turned to her friend and said, you see this man? He is one of the pillars of my faith. And I want to tell you, sir, I am still in the service. I mean, I now was able to drive home with more strength and vigor. Why? Because somebody said, your ministry to me has blessed me. I didn't ask her for it. In fact, she was the one who finally volunteered her name. I don't remember it. And she said, you wouldn't remember, but we sat at your feet, and today I am in ministry because of what you are doing. And if our pastors are doing that, they are helping us and are training us and are building us up, why don't we acknowledge them and tell them? that will lift their spirit. Like the guy who had this, I'm sure he will change his mind now.
Of course.
He'll change his mind from leaving the children's ministry.
I think sometimes the challenge is, I don't know whether it's a cultural thing, but around here where we find it easier to criticize
than to
praise. And maybe if we praise you too much, your head will swell.
You swell.
You become proud. So we want to keep you in your place. It's only when you do wrong then
They
we're
will
quick
say,
to come and tell you.
yeah.
Yes. So, Mrs. Namo, what else can we do to support these our pastors?
I think I've said most of the things. Like, you pray with them, you pray for them. Can you take your pastor's children out? Go to the house and say, sir, I came to pick your children, to go out with my children.
Even have them over for the weekend, so that the pastor too can rest. Pastor and his wife can rest.
Yes, take the children out, and have a meal with them. Christmas, Christmas is coming now, or can you come and take the pastors and take them on an outing, a Christmas
Pastor, if we come and take you on outing, will you go?
With all pleasure.
You are holy. I don't know whether outing is I don't know whether outing is holy enough, Pastor. Do pastors go to restaurants? No, we want to know. Will you go to a restaurant? Is it holy enough?
Is anything wrong with that?
I don't know. They are very holy.
Last year, a missionary couple, SIM, I wouldn't want to call their names, but I hope they are watching. Took me out and we had wonderful lunch somewhere in town. We just sat down and we just talked.
So viewers, pastors go for lunch.
Yes, they do.
They go for lunch. They go to restaurants. So restaurants are not unholy. They will be willing to go. So be willing to take them out.
Take the pastor on a picnic. Take them on a rest.
Let me make one more point about rest. I think that we should give our pastor one day in the week. Where after he's free to just have his day, to himself. I don't know if it is still done in our local church. When I was in the elders board, we insisted that the pastor should have one day off.
And members respect that one day off.
I think you remember. I think the associate pastor had one day, the other.
But sometimes members don't respect the one day off. They won't have respect the one day. They feel their problem is urgent. So that one day off, pastor cannot have one day off. We'll go to his house, knock on his door, and say, come and solve this my problem.
I remember Bishop Kwashi has Thursday is his day off. And he keeps it very well. So, but if you keep it, people will get to know.
The pastor should be deliberate about it.
Right.
The pastor should be deliberate. I remember there was a time, like you were saying, Bishop Kwashi traveled and he had an accident. And we were waiting in the office because he was supposed to come for a meeting. And we were all sitting in the office and waiting. He came very late. He was coming from Adamawa. He came very late. We didn't know that he had an accident on the way. There were no phones. So he came in. He drove. As they came, another vehicle came in. We didn't see him with his own vehicle. So we thought maybe the car had a problem. That's why he came late. He traveled with his brother-in-law. And then he just came into the meeting and continued with the meeting. Auntie Gloria came because the brother went into the house and told her that we had an accident. She left the house and came to meet us in the meeting. I said, and dragged her husband out of the meeting to the house to go and rest. So sometimes, I remember that time we used to lock him in the room if we want him to rest. Because sometimes he will say, it's my body that is weak, my mouth is not weak, I want to talk to people. So we will say, but we want you to rest, So let the pastor be deliberate. Yes, let the pastor be deliberate. Let the pastor's wife be deliberate about their husband's rest day. My husband is resting today. Let nobody preach the sermon to you. They should go and see another pastor. Must it be your husband? Is it that the person is dying and he must see you before he dies? If it is not the death point, an emergency, it can wait. So let the pastor rest. Let him take a rest. Let the pastor go on holiday, I know the Kwashis used to go to Adamawa, they would just disappear for like 1 week or two and go to a place where nobody know them. They too, they will attend service, they will attend church. Nobody knows them as pastors. Why will you be in a church for 366 days?
Sometimes people are afraid of a takeover. If you go, they will take over.
What if you die? If you die, they will still take over. So what are you afraid of? Which one is more fearful, death or rest? If God has the one that called you into this ministry, like I said, he's the owner of the sheep, it's not you. Are you leading the sheep to yourself that you are so afraid to lose them? If they go, if it is God that called you, he will give you another sheep, to take care of. So don't kill yourself over the sheep of God. You are not God. So take a rest, disappear, leave the congregation, go and rest somewhere. The fear is maybe because you are the one, you have built the church like an empire. It's no longer a church, it's an empire now. So you are afraid that CEOs rest, CEOs, they go on holidays, they book a charter the flight and disappear with their family.
So this holiday thing now,
it's very important.
Members who can also
arrange
holiday for our pastors, who can pay for a holiday for them. And any kind of holiday, you can decide. Miango is fine.
Yeah.
Yankari is fine.
Yeah.
America is fine.
If you can afford
Pastor
it, why
Bioma
not?
said yes.
No, if you can afford it, why not?
Switzerland is fine. Hawaii is fine. Pastor, we leave us to Hawaii.
New Zealand is fine. The Caribbeans are fine places.
Pastor, we go to Caribbean.
Yes, now.
So we can sponsor that if we can afford that to get our pastors somewhere to go rest. They are telling us it's time up. So last words, Pastor Bioma. Last words.
Well, I would just say that this is a concerted effort that we must all devote ourselves to. Just like we made a mistake, both of us, that's pastors and members, of setting up the pastor to feel like he's the all in all. Can we also now collaborate to divest him of this mindset and help him to become the servant he ought to be, and that we will see him as our brother whom God has set over us to lead us?
This is Namo.
Pastors are not superhumans. They are human beings, and they should be treated like humans.
Reverend Jerry, Farouk.
Pastors need friends. Please befriend your pastor.
Viewers, many things have been said today about taking care of our pastors. And I think one of the things God will also ask us is also how we took care of our pastors. I think so. So let's get involved in making sure that our pastors succeed by supporting them, being sure that their well-being is being taken care of mentally, physically, socially, and otherwise, as has been raised here. So let's make sure our pastors are doing well. Support them. Be there for them. Pray for them. Take them shopping. Take them out. Pay for holidays for them. And give them space when they need to rest. Give them space. It's not about you. It's about God. Give them space. And please, as we have heard, let's go and do likewise. God bless us all. And until we come again your way next week. Same time, same place, the living room, Equa Television. Thank you so much for coming. God bless you all. And God bless you too, viewers. Thank you.